Welcome to the Lounge with Travefy Academy, where we get to hear from travel industry voices and experts to learn more about their story and what they see on the horizon for travel professionals. And I'm Stephanie Grice, and our guest today is Becky Lukovic, who's a luxury travel designer and travel industry content creator. So welcome to the Lounge, Becky, and thank you for joining us today.
Oh, thank you, Stephanie.
Yes, I was saying this earlier. I was like, I can't believe we have not met before. So I'm so
Yes.
excited to have you. This is going to be a lot of fun. And the topic today is I'm biased because I am a woman, but this is going to be really fun because we're talking all things women in travel. And we'll get into this, but I mean, the travel is made up of so many women and amazing women entrepreneurs, but we want to talk about all things women in travel. So
Yeah.
all that good stuff. So I'm excited to dive in. But before we do that, can you just first share how did you find yourself in the travel industry and what's your story?
Oh, sure. I've been in the industry 20 some odd years, and back in my 30s, I was looking for my thing. I'd always had an entrepreneurial spirit. We had already had a few businesses, and my kids were getting older. And I'm like, what do I want to do? And I had a background in large event planning, but I really didn't want to do that. So I was looking and I was thinking, what are the things that make me happy? What are the things that fit my skill set? I love putting puzzle pieces together. I love taking care of people. I love just making things work in a really cool way. And I found that everything on my list had a travel element. Everything on my life list seemed to have this travel element, like a picnic on the Great Wall of China, or, I want to, see elephants. And I mean, just all these things. And so, I kind of tabled it for a while, and then I had gone on a trip, as most of us do. We go on a trip and we go, I could do this for a living. I had spent hundreds of hours planning this trip to the Amalfi Coast, no less. And I'm like, this was really great. This was like 10 out of 10. I loved it. I'm like, I could do this for a living. I'm like, I don't know who would hire me. I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to start my own business. And this was back in right at 2001. I'm like, I'm going to start my own business. I'm going to be a consultant and tell people how to arrange their itineraries. And I had no travel industry background. I had used travel advisors for air tickets and things like that, but mostly they wanted to sell me just like a cruise or a tour, and I was an independent traveler. And so that didn't really resonate with the style I wanted. And so I went, they still had online travel schools. So I got some education and put my shingle out, and there I was.
That is so cool. And I know that so many people resonate with that too, of, you're just like, well, I like this. And the entrepreneur spirit, which
Yeah.
I know we'll talk about later today, but that's so awesome. That's really cool. And since you started, you said 2001.
Yes,
It's so you kind of have seen a lot of things and
I
so
have.
all the
Yeah.
different changes of the industry.
Yes, the industry has really changed, and for the better. I feel like through my career, I get more and more excited about being a member of the travel industry. And even when it started, it was fantastic. But I'm looking at just how vibrant this industry continues to be, and the direction that it goes. And it just is awesome.
I know it really, really is. I mean, yeah, there's just so much. I mean, in our most recent one of COVID, and now we're seeing this huge boom of, not only travel's exploding, but also so many people entering the industry, and it's so cool. And we'll talk about that in just a little bit, because one thing that I wanted to ask about, because I know this is really popular, is just putting together groups and finding who are your target audience. And since we are focusing on just trends with women in travel, one thing that I wanted to explore is what are some trends that you're seeing for female travelers specifically?
Sure. I'm really seeing women-centric travel really coming to the forefront. And it's, I mean, we still like, the typical girls trip, put your toes in the sand, grab a margarita kind of thing, talk with all your tribe, all that. But women-centric travel has moved well beyond that. And it's in my opinion, it's because women want to travel. And sometimes their partners or spouses either don't like to travel, or they don't want to go where they want to go, or they just need some me time. Sometimes they want to get away, they want to experience something new, and their besties can't go with them. And so I'm seeing a lot of trips for women to join to go see the entire world, not just a typical girls' weekend, load the van with cases of wine kind of situation. And the itineraries are getting exciting. The women who are going are interesting. They're curious travelers. You've got luxury aspects, and it's really fun to see this trend because it's important. And the reason why I think this is happening is, especially women in their 40s, 50s, 60s, as your kids get older, your circle seems to get smaller, because when they're in school, you have your kids' friends, your teachers, the people you see, at just all the parent teacher nights and things like that. And then suddenly when your kids get older and they leave the home, you're not seeing those people all the time. And so maybe you weren't besties, and so your besties are still there, but your circle is shrinking. And what we're trying to do is get these circles to get bigger again, let them connect with women who love to travel as much as they do.
Yeah. And I feel like we've heard about this a lot too, with just a lot of group travel, which I'm not sure if you're in your experience, have you felt like group travel has gotten more popular the past few years? Because I feel like it's been exploding, and especially for like female travel, because I know like as a solo female traveler, it's great if you can be together, if you can find that group that you were saying. So is that kind of like what you're seeing?
Yeah, I'm definitely seeing group travel increasing, but it's more small group travel. You do have some of the larger groups. So women travel is nothing new. But a lot of times it was, hey, we've got a big cruise with a ton of women going. It's a big 50, 60, 100 people kind of thing. And what I'm seeing now, even with our suppliers, are small groups of women going. So you have connections. You don't feel like that fifth wheel when you're by yourself and you don't have three of your besties going with you. And so that's the trend that I'm seeing. I mean, Backroads is a good example. Not to give a shout out, but I mean, they're forefront of my mind of they're starting to create itineraries for women to join. And we've had some of our women's travel club people join those because they can go to the Galapagos and they're going to do all the things, and they meet other women who are traveling and they have the best time. And it's small group, it's engaging, it's fun.
Yeah. And that's a cool thing too. And like what you said too is you're seeing also a lot of women who are wanting to go all over the world. And
Yeah.
so that's really helpful. And what would you say too? What are some of the challenges for those listening right now and they've thought about putting together like groups together, especially for like women travel? What are some of the challenges that you see with trying to do that?
Sure. The biggest challenge is creating momentum, is finding, because group travel can be lucrative, but it can be very difficult, and sometimes there's financial risk involved. Sometimes you have to put down deposits that are non-refundable, and if it doesn't sell, and all that, and so building that momentum, finding those people, the first few trips, you kind of, I've approached the group travel more like I've created another small business. So if I'm not out the gate making a ton, I'm okay because I'm building momentum. And so not everybody is in a position to do that. But I think that's finding your core. You've got to find your core. And then you have to find trips that mitigate your risk, but also can be profitable. So, and
Yeah.
that's the hard part, is everybody seems to want to go. And then when it comes time to put your money down, then suddenly it gets a little more challenging.
Yeah, that's what I've heard that too, where it's keeping the momentum, like you said, and all of that. And are there any successes that you've seen done? Like, is there a playbook that you go by sometimes where you're like, I'm going to start promoting this, or as a lot of the people who have gone on the trips tend to be frequent ones? So they've been on other ones before, or what does that usually look like?
Yes. And so I found nothing sells your next trip like a successful trip. And so once you start going, you had this core and they had that FOMO because, even in the industry, we go everywhere and we still have FOMO when you see your friends out there doing things. And so you've got to build that FOMO. And so, yes. So having that one trip can really move into the next. And what I found, we do in-person events because we have a travel club, but I found having women face to face, meet each other, talk to each other face to face builds a buzz because they're like, oh yeah, we were on this canal barge in Burgundy and had this best time, or we went to Miraval and I did this and this and this. And then suddenly they're selling for you. And when you get to that point, it becomes easier. But you have to find ways to create that community, whether it's in person or via Zoom or something, or connecting people together. It's like, oh, hey, this person's friend is going. Maybe you should invite this friend.
Mm-hmm. I like that. It's all about relationship connecting, like you said. I like that. And I want to ask you about, you mentioned you have a travel club. So
I did.
what is that exactly? How did you start that? That's cool.
Yeah, so we have a travel club. It's called Ciao Bella, Travel Club for Women, and of course, my travel company is Bella Travel Planning. So we started it 2 years ago, January 2 years ago, and it was something that I've been kicking around for a while, and we were seeing women who wanted to go on trips. They would call us and go, well, I'm trying to find a roommate, trying to find someone to go with me. And then inevitably they call back and say, I didn't find anybody. I can't go. I really want to go, and it happened enough to where we started thinking, okay, I think this is a thing. I think there's a need that we can fill with this. And then I was being interviewed for Luxury Travel Advisor magazine for their cover. And I was brave and said, okay, I'm going to put it out into the universe and say it. And months before I even launched it, because if it's there in print, I got to do it. Otherwise, I have to fess up and say, yeah, I said I was going to do it and I didn't do it. So I did that and we launched, and we have 4 to 6 in-person meetings a year in the Atlanta area. So we have a small membership, which basically covers wine. And so we have a membership. We get together. We do fun things. Sometimes we've done a vision board. We've done tiki parties. We've had suppliers come in. I've had a few partners come in and talk to my Ciao Bella ladies, which is always fun. It's not salesy. It's relationship building. And I don't know. I think it was about 6 months ago. I'm at this meeting and we were talking about our favorite spa products, our at-home spa products, and show and tell kind of situation. And I just sat back for a minute and I heard all the chatter, and I was so excited because these ladies, most of them didn't know each other before we launched our group. And then a year and a half later, suddenly they're like hugging and they're telling stories and sharing their lives. And I'm like, I did it. I did it. So yeah, and that's what Ciao Bella is about.
That is so cool. I wish I was in the area. I would want to join. I love that. And I love how it's just like the money just really goes towards wine. That's a easy sell right there. Like, oh yeah,
Yeah.
perfect. That's really cool. And so then do you plan trips and usually those same group of women go and then, or do they know like what you're planning ahead of time? Or is it you just kind of, okay, that's
Yeah,
cool.
so we usually do one international trip a year, and then we do a number of domestic trips. So we've gone to spa a few times that we love. And then for our domestic, like we're getting ready to leave on Thursday, we've got a small group going to New Orleans. So we're going to do some New Orleans food and ghost tours and fun things like that. And then and we tried last year, we went to the Shrimp and Grits Festival at Jekyll Island. We went to the Keys. So we just try to find interesting things to do. And our groups tend to be small. So we don't have 50 people. We want to have 12 and under. and we keep it small on purpose intentionally. But yeah, so we have a docket of what we want to do, and they can pick and choose. And many times they come to a couple a year for sure.
Oh, that is really awesome. And on that, so on the flip side of talking about, the trends that you're seeing in travel and just how group and building these relationships, but I also want to talk about for the women, for the business owners that, and men and women both, but the trends you're seeing, because one of the trends is pretty big that you're talking about is the relationship. And it's also, especially after, the pandemic, and it really just solidified, like, you need to do what you want to do now and find your group if you need to. And so
Yeah.
is that, I mean, I'm assuming that's probably one of the trends, but what other trends are you seeing like in that?
Yeah, I think that's really important. Whether you're starting out or you're a veteran of the industry, I'm finding having that group of women, and I have women entrepreneurs and women entrepreneurs who are in my industry. That is so invaluable to me, and even in my own community, I love my colleagues in Atlanta. Love them. And from the outside, you would think, oh, we're competitors. Well, not really. I mean, there's plenty of fish in the sea. We're competing more against DIY than each other, and I would never take their uh, travelers and vice versa. But I think it's important to create that tribe because you need people to bounce ideas off of, and we get better together. And as we get better at doing our jobs and we help our colleagues get better at their jobs, our industry elevates. And that's what I'm seeing. And I love it. So definitely, you've got the Facebook groups, you have the other groups around where we are helping each other and education. The other thing that I'm seeing is women treating their travel business like a true business, like they're entrepreneurs, they're growing their teams, and that is so exciting for me. When we get together, we're talking business practices, we're talking how do we, what do we do with compensation, how do we market effectively, those types of things. And I'm seeing mastermind groups start, I'm seeing even more hyper focused groups on social media start where we can share those confidential things with a tribe of smaller people. And it's really cool to see these little, I like to call them mini empires. People are building their empires. They may still be an IC with a host, but they've got this growing, burgeoning, dynamic, vibrant business. And to me, that's the coolest thing.
It really is. And we were talking about this before, that how there's just so many amazing people that are just entering the industry within just the last 5 years, and they have this huge business, and you would never know they just started this and this was
Yeah.
their first time. Like, it's so incredible. So for those who are starting out, or maybe they've been starting out, they're trying to shift or grow their business, what would you say they should be focusing on right now? Like, what are some top things that they could do like right now?
Yeah. I mean, I think branding is important, and I don't just mean have a pretty logo and have your colors match. I mean, have your, like, how do you present yourself in public? How do you ask for business? How do you conduct yourself? And because you are your brand. And where are you going? Where are you going to meet the people who you want to sell to, who you want to be your travelers? If you want honeymooners, then you need to find ways to reach them, and word of mouth is great too, but you need to find that. If you want luxury, it's like, where are you? Where are you at things where they are, and how are you comporting yourself? And I think that's really important. And I think especially early on, you're so hungry for the business, you're almost like passing all your cards out to anybody who would listen. And perhaps you need to be more like ninja marketing, where you're a little chill. But everybody's different, and their mindset's different. But those are definitely important things. The other thing, if you're just starting, find a mentor, find a mentor, find a mentor. So many people invested in me when I started my business, and I'm so much better for it. I'm so much more business savvy. I'm more travel savvy because of the people who invested in me. And so find a mentor. There are programs out there. where you can pay for coaching time, that's awesome. And there are things that you can do to get educated. So those are definitely important. And then the last thing is, it sometimes some people out the door, they're selling 1 million, 2 million, 3 million out the door. And some people like me, it took a bit. It took some time to grow my business, year after year after year. And both are fine. It doesn't mean if you're not making the income that you want to make that you are not succeeding. You are succeeding. You just need to keep on swimming, Nemo. Just keep on going because you got it. You just keep increasing year over year.
Yes, it's so true. And I think that's the thing. It's so easy to get discouraged when you're, because in your, and especially because a lot of people are working this as side jobs and they're trying to, and they have a family and there's just all these moving pieces. And so is there anything that you found like as you were growing your business that was helpful? Like, even if it was like productivity wise, or how did you balance it all? Or was it just kind of having that community, that mentor to keep you going? Because I could see how that could be very helpful.
Yeah, I think definitely at some point you have to have a system. You have to have a process. You have to, when you get to a certain level, and you have to duplicate yourself. And the hardest thing is that first step, that first duplication of yourself, because that's money out of your pocket. It's like, how can I pay them? I don't make enough to pay somebody. And that is really hard, but you do plateau. And so once you get to a certain productivity, you definitely need to have people that you pay to do the tasks that don't have the ROI there. And so, it's just, and you have to be organized. You have to have your to-do list. And I think the hardest thing is the perception. It's a double-edged sword. The perception of those of us in the travel industry is we have a glamorous life, which we do. It's all glamorous. And we're traveling the world, we're seeing everything. And that's true. And it's good because then we inspire people to want to travel. And that's the whole point of showing that the glitz and glamour of all that we do. But there is a behind the scenes where you're up at 5 in the morning, 6 in the morning, cranking out the emails before you do your site inspection. You're checking emails on your phone here and there. And so you have to find that system to keep it all together because it can be challenging at times.
Yeah. And I've heard that a lot. That is a very good point, is it's all about your system and keeping it organized, all that. So that's awesome. And I want to ask you too, where can everyone find, I'll put it in the show notes, but where can people reach you at and find more information about you and your business?
Oh, sure. So you have my website. My website is mybellatravel.com. You can also find me on Instagram, mybellatravel, and then also on Facebook, Bella Travel Planning. So those are the best 3 places to find me. And I'm also on LinkedIn, but don't message me there because I'm never on there. Sorry, LinkedIn.
I know. I know, it's really funny. LinkedIn, it's either like loved or just, I actually forget about it too. A lot of times if messages and I'll see them and I'm like, oh man, I need to be better about this.
Yeah.
And that's probably one of the things too is, social media with your business. And I know that's just another avenue doing all the things, but before though we go here, is there any other final things that you would like to say?
You know, what I would really like to say is, I don't know what I want to say. Let me think about it for a second. So what I want to say is, if you're here in the travel industry and you're killing it or you want to kill it, it's like, just keep going. Keep getting more education. Find people who you can learn from. This is a great, amazing industry. And when you treat it like a business, even if it's your side hustle, when you treat it like a business, that's when you are going to see it start producing like a business. And so just put that badass female entrepreneur hat on and go for it. Don't halfway do it, be all in. And yeah, you'll see the rewards.
I love that. That's inspirational. I love that. And it's so good. But I actually lied to you. I'm not done yet because we like to do rapid fire questions, just
Okay.
travel related, fun questions at the end. Okay. So there's seven, I think there's six of them. So the first one, what is your favorite travel movie?
Oh gosh, my favorite travel movie. Right, well, it still is. Under the Tuscan Sun. And the reason is because she's a woman, she's in a life change, and her friends convince her you need a new zip code for a moment. And she goes on this tour, she falls in love with not a person, but a place, and it changes her entire trajectory. And I love that.
I love that movie. That is such a good one. That's such a great movie there. So another question here is what is your favorite destination that you've traveled to? I know this is kind of a tough question, but if you had to choose.
Gosh. I it's hard. It's really hard. So one of my couple of favorite recents were gorilla trekking in Uganda and Antarctica. I'm still an Italy girl. Italy, I love Italy. I love France. They have my heart. Positano in a villa somewhere up in the mountain, just a little bit, just has my heart. It's hard to pick. It's truly hard to pick. But for me, I think the experience I love when I can have an experience that is luxury juxtaposed with my hiking boots. And I love that juxtaposition and that type of experience. So yeah.
Oh, I love that. That's such a great niche too. I like that. Luxury, but with hiking boots. That's so great. I love that. And so a little bit of a flip side of that question is what do you think is the most underrated destination to visit?
Um, that's a really good question. I think the most underrated, oh, you know what? I would say Argentina. Argentina is definitely underrated. Buenos Aires is beautiful, European feeling. You've got Patagonia, you have wine country, and it's harder to get people to put that. I mean, many people want to go, but it's like put it up on your list a little more. And so, yeah, I think that's really underrated.
I like that. Yeah, that's a good one. And another question here is what is the best meal that you've had while traveling? I know it's another tough
Oh,
one.
golly. Oh my gosh, that's really hard. I don't know that I could pick. I'm a tasting menu girl. I love a good tasting menu, and that hits my happy place, and especially if it's paired with wine. So I would say recently I was in Paris and went to Page for lunch and had a 6 or 7 course paired tasting menu. Oh my gosh, it was out of this world amazing, beautifully plated. I actually have a reel on it on my Instagram. Go check it out. Um, there's Charlemagne. I just came from Burgundy for a month, so I've got all these French things on my
Amazing.
mind. In near Corton. I mean, it's just yeah. So I don't know. I don't think I've met a tasting menu I don't like. So it's hard to pick for real.
That is so true. I definitely I feel that too. Like and you get to try everything. So let me ask you this though. What would you say was the favorite or one of the ones that stands out to you? One of the dishes that you was on the tasting menu?
Um, when I was there last month, it was, or I guess in April, it was white asparagus season, and I'd had white asparagus here and there, and to me, it tasted like asparagus that didn't taste like asparagus. But when I was there, these big fat pieces of white asparagus cooked to perfection. They were sweet. I mean, just I feel like I had that every single day and in different forms, and I was in love. I was
Oh,
absolutely in love.
sounds my stomach just grumbled. It sounds amazing. So that is great. Now my mouth is watering. Now another question for you though is what is the last great book or article that you read? And it can be travel or business related.
Book in terms of fiction or book in terms of business book or
Whichever one was just the last, like what one that stands out to you that was really
the
good.
The last fiction book I just read, I love to read fiction, is Lady Tan's Circle of Women, and by Lisa C. And it's new. It was about these women who they grew up, and of course in Asia, and you had to have your feet bound and all that, but they learned to um, give medical services like to other women and things like that, and all the challenges. And it was really fascinating. I absolutely love that. Love that.
That's really cool. Yeah, that is there's so many good books. And do you ever, well, just a side off question is, do you and your travel club, do you do books and stuff too?
Yes, we
Yeah.
actually do. Great question. So, two of the ladies who were in my travel club owned a bookstore.
Oh, cool.
So, many times in our trips, we'll have like a book and we'll have a little discussion. So, when we went to Burgundy last year and chartered that canal barge, we actually had a book club discussion of a book. But yeah, so we
So cool.
do books are important with all of us. We share books and things like that. So yeah, it's just fun to me. I like to be transported to somewhere different, and that's awesome.
I know. That's what I've been every time I have to travel somewhere, I try to find books now, just
Yeah.
fiction books. Like, and it really is awesome. It's so cool. So had to ask you.
Yeah.
So a final question here. This is one of my favorites, is what is the craziest thing that's ever happened to you while traveling?
Oh, craziest thing that has ever happened to me while traveling. Um, Let me think. I'm just going to go with kind of an easy one, but I mean, I definitely have crazy things happen because, you know, weird things happen when you travel. You miss a train, that type of thing. But really, one of the craziest things that happened to me recently was when we were chimpanzee trekking when we were in Uganda. And in my mind, the chimpanzees were like, oh, little cheetah from Tarzan. They're like, cute and they're funny and they're adorable. And yeah, so when you see them face to face, it's more like watching like the new installations of the Planet of the Apes. And they're hunters, they hunt monkeys. And they're kind of like intense. And then they look at you. And when I saw the movie poster, I'm like, oh, I've seen that look. And so we were standing there, and this chimpanzee was walking, but he was like walking like Arnold Schwarzenegger. And he was like looking right at me. And I took a step back, and our guide, this amazing woman guide that we had, came up behind me and grabbed my shoulders and whispered in my ear, she goes, be still, don't run.
Oh
And
my
part of me,
God.
I was like, well, I wasn't going to run. I just took a step back to let him go by. And then the other thing was like, oh, why? What would happen if I ran? And so to me, that was just really, got my heart beating and everything. And so continuing on, you're definitely off trail hiking. They've got the machete and they're cutting like the all the greenery away and things like that. And we end up in this bog, and we're following this chimpanzee family through a bog. And I'm next behind her. And I feel like I was in Survivor, because you're walking on these like this big, like fallen tree branches and thing, or tree stumps and stuff that are just over these wet, boggy areas. And then we're trying to cross, and she's like, step here, step here. And when I stepped where she said step, suddenly I'm like down to my knee inside like this bog. Like it's sucking me in.
Ugh.
And then the chimpanzee's like 10 feet away from me, just watching me. And I'm like, don't eat me. I'm not a monkey. Don't eat me.
Oh
And
my gosh.
trying to get my foot out. I'm like mud up to my hip, and I finally remembered point your toe. So from my farm wife days, when you get stuck in the
Huh?
mud I'm like, am I gonna have to leave I can't even reach my hand down to untie my boot. And so I'm like pulling on my boot, trying to get it out. And finally, like, point your toe, Becky. And I had to sit down in the mud and pull my leg out of the mud with my toe pointed. And yeah. And then we had to walk back out. But that was insane.
Oh, I totally would have been like, this is where it ends. Like I'm done. Like this is, which I did not know the toe pointing. So good to know that in the future, if
Yes.
anything. But that is scary because I feel like that's the thing about traveling is you we're so used to like you would see monkeys like in the zoo or something or chimpanzees in the zoo. So you're like, nothing's going to happen. But then when you're like traveling and you're in the real, you're like, wait, nothing can happen, right? And they're like, no, something could happen. Like it's real. It's real. Like
Yeah.
that is wild.
And that's why I say my favorite travel experiences are hiking boots juxtaposed with luxury because you get the stories. You get that my
Yeah,
adrenaline was up again just thinking about it.
I know.
And it's just to me, I mean, some people that's going to be no bueno for them, but it's like, okay, I got dirty, I washed my pants, washed my shirt, I've got mud everywhere, but that's okay. I feel like I did something.
Exactly. And I bet it was really fun afterwards having some wine and talking about
Yes.
regaling about the stories. Like
Yes.
that's cool.
Yes, yes, for
I
sure.
love it. Well, this has been awesome. I could just keep asking you so many questions. I love it. But I just want to thank you so much. And thank you, everyone, for tuning into this episode of the Lounge with Travify Academy. And of course, thank you to our special guest, Becky, for joining us today. And be sure to subscribe to our to our podcast or subscribe to our YouTube channel for all of the latest episodes. And we hope you enjoyed our conversation today and join us again. But for now, stay safe and we'll catch you on the next flight.